Now the Land and Water and UW Extension meeting will come to order. Was the meeting properly announced?
Yes, it was.
May we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. Myself, Supervisor Mons, Supervisor Wimmer, Supervisor McLaughlin, Supervisor Eggersdorf is for Supervisor Krug, and Doreen is here, and Mary Lou Paler. I'd entertain a motion to approve our agenda. Motion by Bruce Mons, Supervisor Mons. Do I have a second? Second by Doreen. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. The agenda is approved. Has everyone had the opportunity to review the September 5th, 2023 committee meeting minutes? Are there any changes, corrections, etc. to the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. Is anyone signed up for public participation?
I do not.
So, Jeff, is that something that you wish to add your name to? Do we have a sign-in sheet?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Thank you. If it is all right with the committee, I'd like to take the correspondence that is under that heading and put it down by item 13 for consideration, as that is what it is regarding. The item number 13 is the water removal from area lakes. If that is okay for everyone. Okay. Project status report. Was everyone able to access the sheet that corresponds to Land and Water and UW Extension? Are there any questions? Dustin, will you be talking about the contractor proposed solution down further? That was in the project status report. It says contractor proposed new solution in process of making decision on whether it is best course of action. It's to remove concrete rebar from the lake bed of Rosha Cree Lake.
Yep, I'll discuss that at the dams.
Okay.
I mean,
All right. That's okay. Does that fit with everybody? Okay. We are going to move on to the 5-year CSA for Adams County Wildlife Damage Abatement and Claims Program. I think Maddie is online.
Yes.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. All right. Hi everybody, I'm Maddie Paff. Sorry I couldn't be there today, but I'm in Illinois. So the 5-year CSA hasn't changed too much this year from what I understand from the past 5 years. It's an agreement between the services that USDA Wildlife Services provides and then what's expected of the county and the state. So I think the signature part of it is page 6, but if you guys have any questions regarding wildlife damage, feel free.
Are there any questions, Supervisor Mons?
If the report or the abatement hasn't changed, is there a motion that we have to have this signed, or is that just done?
I believe there is,
A
but
motion that we need to approve and sign it?
correct.
I make that motion.
Do I have a second? Supervisor McLaughlin made a second. So we're going to open it for discussion. Were there any questions for Maddie? I guess I have a couple. There isn't a lot of specific changes from the last contract. Is it anticipated that the Sandhill cranes will be approved, and when might that occur?
So that is in the legislature right now. I understand they've been voting on it in the past year or so. The last time it came up, it was not moved forward. So as of right now, no, I would not anticipate that happening. Through our office, though, there is the opportunity for farmers to get some crane shooting permits through the Waupun office, though they are having issues. So although they're not, you can get some permits.
Okay, so Maddie, you broke up a little bit. Are you saying that there are different measures available for Sandhill cranes if they are having a nuisance effect on the crops?
Yep. Through our office in Waupun, the biologist's name is Mike Jones. So he handles all the federal migratory bird depredation permits. So there is the ability for farmers to get a couple of shooting permits if they need it for ag damage caused by cranes. But that's separate from the damage program.
Okay, thank you. Was that more clear for everybody here? Okay. Maddie, can you indicate Act 82 and its relationship with this document?
Sure. So Act 82 is the shooting permit that farmers who don't want to allow the public access are eligible for. Farmers who are seeking compensation for wildlife damage have to allow public hunting access for the damage causing species. Act 82 is for deer only, but there has to be the likelihood of $1,000 worth of damage during the calendar year. And then they can become eligible just for permits. So no compensation, but they also don't have to allow the public access. So we have several of those in Adams County.
Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Supervisor Wimmer?
Yes, thank you. So basically, they would be allowed to shoot cranes?
Correct. Yep. If they're damaging seed corn, they do have to provide a receipt proving that which is the repellent that you can apply to seed corn to keep the cranes from eating it, as a prerequisite to getting those permits. But yes, there is the opportunity for a small number of shooting permits just to help with damage.
Have any been shot as of today?
Oh, most of these permits come out in the spring, and that's separate from the damage program, so I'm not sure. But there usually are several permits that go out every spring.
And my next question is how many farms applied for this program?
For crane permits,
Yes.
I do not know. Since that's separate from the damage program, I don't really do anything with cranes. But that would be Mike Jones.
I'm sorry, the program in general,
Oh.
not specifically cranes.
Okay, yep. For Adams County, we have 15 enrollees. So one full program enrollee. So he gets compensation for damage, and he also allows public deer hunting on his property. And then the other ones are kind of a mix. There's several Act 82, which is the deer shooting permits. There's a few apiaries, so they get fencing to prevent bear damage. And then several that have had livestock taken by wolves in past years. They're enrolled for fox lights and different non-lethal abatement materials for wolf damage.
So does that does that include wolf damage to livestock, this program?
Yep, correct. So right now, with wolves being on the endangered species list, when we do confirm a wolf kill on livestock, we can provide assistance to that farmer with non-lethal stuff. So we've done fladry projects in the past, fox lights, radios, things like that. And then they are also reimbursed by the state for lost livestock and wolf kills.
So is this the main wolf depredation program that a farmer would use to get, paid for?
Yep.
Okay,
So as soon as the depredation occurs, the sooner they can call, the better. One of us will go out and take a look, confirm yes or no it was a wolf, and if it was, help them through the application process for reimbursement from the state.
thank you.
Sure.
Doreen?
Just a little insight on the cranes. When you get a permit, you're not allowed to keep the cranes. You shoot it and you leave it dead there. And that deters other cranes from coming, and being there. So you're only allowed to shoot a couple cranes. And just, there are other states that, allow crane, harvest, for hunting and stuff like that. So, up here, it's just a lot to do with the whooping cranes and the confusion, not wanting to kill them. So that's a little history.
Sure.
Thank you. Are there
No
any
problem.
other? Sorry, Maddie. Did you have anything else to add?
No, I don't know if the crop prices, the budget, and the deer donation forms are later on the agenda. I have those as well to be signed.
No, they are not.
Okay.
Who would have those? Because that was not sent in. Is there a way that you could send those to our recording secretary? Can we
Sure.
address those today, even though they're not on the agenda? No, they will be on next month's agenda. Maddie.
Okay.
Okay.
Who would I need to send those to then?
It is part of the abatement process though, isn't it? APHIS with all the crop percentages and whatnot for loss, the documentation you're sending over.
So that would be there. We had this, it's kind of 4 different things: the CSA, the budget, the crop prices, and then the intent to participate in the venison donation program. So they're all under APHIS. They're just all 4 separate signatures. So however you need to handle it.
Is there a deadline?
Well, I was hoping for this month for the budget and crop prices, definitely. The venison donation form, there's not really a deadline because it's for next year. We just like to do it all in one.
Hold on 1 second, Maddie.
Okay, thank you.
Maddie, a question for you. If we adopt the 5-year CSA for Adams County Wildlife Damage Abatement and Claims Program, would we have been able to not adopt the budget, crop prices, and deer venison donation aspects?
I guess I don't understand the question. So
Could we pick and choose as to what we are approving and not approving? Or do they all fall under kind of the same header?
So they're all separate. So the CSA is the 5-year document, and then the budget is just for this year. And then the crop prices, it's really just corn, since there's the one enrollee who will get compensated for deer loss on corn. So though the crop prices and budget are not part of the CSA. If that clears anything up.
Yes. Okay, then we'll do those next time. So I will get your email and then we'll get those documents for you for the next time. And can you just remind me, what does CSA stand for?
Cooperative Service Agreement.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve the 5-year CSA for Adams County Wildlife Damage Abatement and Claims Program, and a second. Yes, Supervisor Wimmer.
Yes, thank you. So if a farm is in this program, can anybody go in and hunt on that land from the public?
Yes, so there's a set of rules around it. The public member does have to call and just ask permission. It's on a first come, first served basis. And then there's a hunter logbook that they can sign in and sign out of. So yep, the one farmer in Adams County, his name's Richard Lucas. He is the only one in Adams that is getting compensated for loss. But yep, anybody from the public can go.
Thank you.
So
Sure.
Maddie, one thing that I noticed, there's managed access and open access.
Sure.
So could you explain the difference on that?
Yeah, most farmers opt for the managed access. So that's where if someone from the public wanted to hunt, they do have to call first and let them know. Which most people, even though they do have to allow the public on there, it's still nice for them to know who's planning on being out there and when. Open access, if they don't care, then, you know, the people don't have to call ahead when they're planning on hunting. They can just go. So almost everybody opts for managed hunting. I have not had anybody do open.
Thank you. Does that help, Supervisor Wimmer, any further?
One other question.
Sure.
Well, just a comment. Basically, I would suggest, I'm not really for this. I don't mind if the public has access to go in and hunt deer. I don't like the idea of killing cranes. I don't care what species of cranes it is. And I would suggest that farmers plant a different crop if they're having problems. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Sure. Yep. As of right now, cranes are not part of the damage program, since there's no hunting season on them in Wisconsin. So that's just a separate federal depredation permit farmers can get.
So Maddie, a couple questions. One is, if we were enrolled in this program, it would go for deer, bear, goose, and turkey, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay,
but-
and go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. So it's just the damage causing species. So if you're getting deer damage, you only have to allow deer hunting access. Goose damage, you know, they don't have to allow deer hunters, but they do have to allow goose hunters. So just the damage causing species.
So could you maybe educate the committee if this is denied? What would go on?
If the CSA is denied.
Correct.
So it's a statewide program that the DNR has. It's really unique to Wisconsin, and it really helps provide hunters with options for managing wildlife damage. So a lot of things like bears on apiaries provides fencing to help prevent them from getting in apiary yards. Fencing, a lot of non-lethal stuff for goose, like keeping geese out of crops. Shooting permits for deer when they're causing a lot of damage in the summer. So it's just a really wide variety of ways that we can help mitigate some of the damage that wildlife causes within the county. But it's a statewide program, and every county runs it a little bit differently. So
Okay,
question.
thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed, say nay. Supervisor Wimmer was a nay. Everyone else was an A. Seeing as the majority is in favor, this has passed. And then we'll need to have signatures before you leave on it, I believe. Is it just mine? I thought it was everybody's. Just mine. Okay. Never mind. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I thought it was County Manager Haggard's, but
Or maybe Land and Water Conservation Director.
this might be it all. I don't know. Supervisor McLaughlin.
Thank you. I forgot to mention, just seconds ago, I wanted to echo Supervisor Wimmer's thoughts. Particularly about the cranes. Corey, I feel that I feel that a lot of that towards any animal. I'm not a hunter, never have been. I that part, I'm full agreement with. I don't like the idea really. Deer is one thing, they get harvested and used. If that's, but I just wanted to make it known that I too have that same concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maddie, if you're still here for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in person at the next meeting.
Yep, and then I will send off an email where you can send those documents for our consideration for next month's agenda.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, moving on to the UW extension. Is there a lot of bounce back or is that just me? Is it okay? All right, we'll see if it improves. Right. Are there any questions for Pat Wagner from the committee?
There
Pat,
was
do
no,
you wish to tell us your report?
Sure.
Okay, and then we'll might maybe have questions afterwards too.
No, my question, since we didn't meet in October, I was like, well, what have I been doing? And I have been doing budgets in 5 counties, so that's been my primary. Am I on? I'm on.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll talk about, so anyway, so budget for other counties is what I worked on. The other thing that Area 14 staff all took part in was something we call civil rights review. So part of our funding comes from the county and part of our funding comes from the federal government and state government. So we're required to look at how we meet the needs of the people that we serve in all the counties. We're not saying that you have to be a certain race or ethnicity to be part of our programs, but rather we want to make sure that we're offering programs to as many people as we can in as many ways as possible. And so we went through that process. Adams County partnered with Juneau County and did the review together to save time because we have individuals in a variety of counties now with our regional educators. Also, just this last week, all of our staff were involved in the All Colleague Conference, which again was the stateside bringing us together down in Madison. Didn't cost you anything, was something that the state does to bring us together and help us understand the mission and vision better through the UW-Madison Division of Extension. That's what I've been up to. And then we have a couple of things on the agenda today. So if you have questions about what I just shared, you can ask those now, and then I can hit the letter B.
Are there any questions for Pat in regards to what she's already stated? How was the gathering at Madison for UW staff coming together?
It was very well attended. It was a record. We had, people from every county in the state present. We had individuals from the university. One of the missions of this particular, one of the objectives would be a better word, for this particular all-colleague conference was to really help our staff see what's available to them as resources as they work with bringing programming to the people of Wisconsin. We listened to Chancellor Mnuchin one day in a presentation, as well as the Dean of Extension. So it was well attended, and I think people brought home things that they can then share with their constituents here in the counties.
Did you derive anything that would help the staff say, this is exactly what we have to do to make sure that our constituents know that these programs are available? Because I think there is a hit or miss, I guess, is what I would say in terms of communication as to what's available, what's not available. Do I get access to it? Who do I call? That kind of thing.
I think what I'll tell you is that in any role, when you take a new job, right, you have to, that there's always that learning curve. And if you asked each of the educators that are here today, they would tell you that they brought something back that they will definitely share with, whether it was somebody else that they networked with, that they can then do more with, or it's some skill that they learned about, or it's some resource that they learned about. One of the things people could do was go to the Steenbach Library and see what resources are available if you were doing some kind of research. So there will always be that breakdown, but we work really hard to continually show people and educate people about what's available so that we can then get the information to the people in Adams County and the rest of the state.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, if there aren't any questions for that, we're going to go on to the 136 contract review.
So the 136 contract is when we look at the proposed budget in a few minutes, it's that contracted services part. Cynthia, as our county administrator, is the one who signs this, but I think it's important for you as county oversight committee members to understand that this exists. The contract was reviewed by your corporation counsel, Jeff Hayes. Get the right Jeff, there's another Jeff in another county. And he had no problem with it. The only changes that were made in this 136 contract were to the times when the invoices would be sent. We moved that back a month. And then the last page of the document is referred to as, I'm gonna look up here as she scrolls down right there. It's called the Delegation of Financial Budget Authority form. And so that is the agreement between the county administrator and myself as the area extension director, so that she gives me responsibility for making sure that I work with the staff on invoices, travel reimbursements, purchase requisitions, things that somebody like Dusty already does, but he's 100% county employee and I'm not in that county employment situation. So that document is added to the 136 contract this year. And then as long as I'm in this role, it would continue forward unless there was a desire for it to be changed by the county. And then Melissa, then if you go back to the numbers, I think that was in the middle right there. That number is the number that's in our budget. That 105,617.50. As you see, there's a health and well-being educator. That would be Sheila Michaels. 4-H program educator is Evan Henthorn. Our regional crops educator is Natasha Paris, and our regional livestock educator is Adam Hartfield. Each of their this is not their salary. This is the co-funded part. So the state then picks up the difference and covers probably more than 50% of the person's salary and benefits. And then you see that it's a quarter for each of the regional educators. And then every state is offered that $10,000 first educator discount. So then our subtotal is at 105,617, and we had about a 3% increase from last year to this year.
Are there any? Oh, Doreen.
I noticed it on the budget side of this and not here, where you could compare last year's numbers to this year's numbers. And the salary numbers did not increase. And I just, due to inflation and cost of living, I just want to make sure that there is some sort of room to give people cost of living increase and or performance increases, because it's not in our budget from Adams County.
And so, go ahead, Bruce.
Go ahead, Supervisor Mons.
Excuse me, but it was, if you look at
I-
their.
I thought it
there
was
about a
too.
$3,000 increase in salaries. which
Maybe I
was-
looked at it wrong then.
Kyle, do you want to speak on that, or Pat?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Thank you. Doreen, are you referring to the extension educators as contracted services amount, or the salaries for the other staff, which would be our Linda Arneson and Laura Schultz?
I just noticed it on the proposed budget, and maybe I looked at it too fast.
It's overall.
I'm gonna pull it up and double check it.
I think if you went to to the next tab, Melissa, on the agenda, you can see what the budget. That one.
Regular salaries.
So the third column from the far right is the 2023 number, and that was 53,300 or 51,365. And then the last column on the far right says 54,999. That would have been the salary increases for Linda and Laura. And then the contracted services for the extension educators was at 102,250. So you see contracted services there. And now it's 105,618. I didn't round it up.
Okay, so that was my error then. Okay, thank you.
And then if the state, let's say your county decides the COLA's 2%, and there was the proposal that UW system employees would get a 4% increase, that won't be reflected here. It's already figured into the contract. So if it's more than, then that's what, it's already in the contract.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Cost of living increases. Okay. Okay, are there other, yes, Supervisor Mons?
Do we need a motion to adopt or accept this 136 contract?
I talked to Cynthia about this ahead of,
There's room for 5 signatures.
Yep,
There's,
This was
do we sign this or just because there's room for 5 signatures on the county side?
that was my thought that we did, so we would require a motion.
Cynthia, do you want to? So last year you did not, and the reason the contract does show 5 spaces is that some counties do not have a county administrator. They have a county oversight committee, and that's the highest administration.
Okay,
So then in Juneau County, I'll have to do that, right? Because they don't have a county administrator, they're county board chairman, and then their oversight committee. So the oversight committee signs in those counties. In a county where there's a county administrative coordinator or a county administrator, those individuals have signed. This, in my opinion, I did this with Cynthia's grace, to give you information. I want you to understand that there's a contract, that we really take it seriously. You're a partner with us. And so moving forward, I always want to be transparent is the word, right?
sounds good. I have a couple other questions before we continue on. Are there other things that should be considered under other items or conditions? Because those are blank, and that is on Cynthia's
Oh, on the last
signing page, yeah.
And Cynthia would have the opportunity to add to that if she wants to.
Would you also have the
I don't
opportunity?
have any additional things that I would like added to it.
Okay. Okay, so then do we need a motion or not?
Nope.
No,
Again, it was
Okay.
just for
it's just information.
information, so you guys
Okay.
are aware.
Okay, any other questions? All right. Community health worker pilot project.
We'll start here. You each have this document called the Extension Rural Health Connection Project. So again, I guess this would be an example of one of those opportunities that because we are part of the University of Wisconsin's Division of Extension, Sheila Michaels represents in our county, the Health and Wellbeing Institute, and the Health and Wellbeing Institute Director, along with Angela Flickinger and a couple others, I don't have their names, were able to apply for and receive a grant through the Wisconsin Rural Partnership Initiative. And they're going, in other parts of the United States, there are already people in play called community health workers. And Adams County was identified as a county that would benefit from something like this. Do you remember the other two?
I don't remember the other 2 counties, but the state in having received, or extension in having received this pilot project grant is piloting community health worker establishment in 3 communities across the state. And they're looking at Adams County as one of those possibilities.
And as you look down, you'll see, so I talked to Cynthia about this first, and I think you shared it out with Kelly Olson then after that. Is that correct, Cynthia? And Kelly Olson was in favor of it, from the standpoint that it would be something beneficial to Adams County to try. And then as you look at what a community health worker is, I'm going to let Sheila speak to that because she actually has done some work in this area and could probably explain it better than I.
Community health workers have a very, that title is still in progress of being identified in terms of the tasks that person would be responsible for. It can vary a lot, and the position would be designed to meet a need that was identified within the county. So there would be an assessment process, stakeholder interviews, and other pieces to identify what is the population that we population or populations that we need to serve, or what are the health conditions that we need to address using the position of a community health worker. So some community health workers across the nation might focus on access to healthcare services for low income or low socioeconomic status individuals. Some might work on a specific health need, such as addressing diabetes, and follow up with individuals who have been diagnosed and need consistent follow up on their care management. And so there's a broad range of what this position could look like. And we also will be inviting input from local constituents and local agencies and organizations that can help us identify what those needs would be. And then that position would be full-time, funded through this grant for 3 years. It would be an extension employee overseen by Angie Flickinger, who is our Healthy Eating Active Living Program Manager for the state, for the estate extension program. I guess what other questions do people have about it?
Are there questions from the committee? Thank you, Sheila. Doreen?
What's the time frame or timeline as far as?
You look at second bullet point under overview, or first or second bullet points, fourth one too. The recruitment could start as early as the end of this year, with a start date of 2024, and there would be funding through December of 2026. Another thing, Amber Canto, of course, I said, so what happens after that? And so they will then be looking, I thought I have a loud voice. They will be looking at how they could continue with some kind of sustainability. So again, it's a research project to gather information about how this could benefit these 3 rural counties, and then to move forward from there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering how, I mean, it's such a short time frame to gather information and then to hire,
The hiring, the position description is already created, and then they would be hiring a person to do the gathering of information and then to be doing some work with not only Sheila, but with other parts. Sheila's also done some other work with, is it Cody?
Yeah, with public health.
From the Department of Health. And they had already begun talking about what benefit might happen for Adams County if we had a community health worker, as well as there was some funding from another entity. The guy from the west side of the state.
Right. There's a separate opportunity that agencies or organizations in Adams County could access funding to support training, financial support to train a community health worker if an organization such as Gunderson Health Clinic or Aspirus or Health First Network wanted to hire their own community health worker. There's a separate grant that those agencies would have access to funding to train a community health worker in a training that is standardized across the nation.
Supervisor McLaughlin?
Thank you. Before these last few statements here, I just want to make sure I understood correctly, or correct me if I didn't. It sounded to me like after this initial startup, it would end up falling as into a county position funded by the county, or did I misunderstand that?
That is not the intent. The intent is that this is an opportunity for us to try this on. And then the state representatives from the Institute of Health and Wellbeing are looking at other means of sustainability, not the county, not the county's responsibility. The only responsibility you would have would be allowing the space. And we looked at the cubicles in the extension office and found that there was at least one that could be used in that capacity for a full-time educator or community health worker to be involved in this county. So no, there is no expectation that the county would pick up this position.
I didn't mean to sound like I don't like the idea. That's not the case. Well, we've all learned our lessons along the way, and I've just learned that, over different times that sometimes things like this that start out so pretty, and at the end of the first startup, the county ends up to keep it to fund it. That's all. I just don't want any surprises. I like to minimize surprises like that, and so, but that's all I was getting at.
And I like the way you just said that, Mr. Chair, Representative McLaughlin, because that was what Sheila and I felt, was that even though we had the, okay from Cynthia, it made sense to talk to you all too, that you would know that this possibility existed, that we could have this individual working in the county. And so if somebody asked you later what's going on, then you'd be able to answer that question. So I don't like surprises either.
Are there any other questions? I have one. You mentioned Kelly Olson. So there is nothing like this in place already at Health and Human Services?
Correct.
Okay. And then they would also be sharing that information as this position is available
Yeah,
to our
Extension,
community.
Extension works pretty closely in partnership with other organizations that have a stake in this. And so we would work really closely with the health care services industry as well as Health and Human Services and make sure we're all on the same page and we're all providing input into what this position looks like and focuses on. Also, what I forgot to mention is the unique thing about a community health worker is it is meant to be a person who is a part of the community or is closely tied with the community so that they have that sense of trust and understanding of what the needs are and what the and are able to make that type of a connection with the individuals that they're serving.
Thank you, Sheila. Cynthia, question for you. They mentioned 3 rural communities. Are those the 3 that got the project designation, USDA project designation, or do those correlate with those or not? Okay, so you're the visionary. There were 3. Yeah.
They are not connected. It just, I can't find the documentation. I know one of them was the Menominee tribe, one of the Menominee tribes up north, and I can't think what the third one was. I thought it was right here. And so I can't find it in writing, but it is not the same as what you identified in a different group. If
Was
they
it
are,
Wood
it would be
County?
coincidental.
Was it Wood County?
It is
Wood County has a pretty extensive community health worker project that they had initiated under different funding or a different
I think you're right.
creative source. And so they've been identified to be able to continue that program through this pilot project, I believe.
I think you're right.
Okay. And last, we don't need to make a motion. This is again just informational.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. No other questions from the committee? All right, moving along. 4-H Thrive data.
All right.
Evan?
Thank you. Yes. So before we begin, I just wanted to say to Supervisor Chairman, I really like how you had said about reaching people and how we can articulate essentially what we're offering. So if you and anybody, if you have new ways of reaching people or articulating our need, please connect with us because that is one of the focuses. And so this kind of ties in with today's kind of conversation. So I'll just start off with, we have this thing called the Thrive survey. And so I'll point out the top first, which is like our ending. So we have this flower graphic. And so one of the things that we strive for in Wisconsin 4-H is that nice, pretty flower piece. So what does that mean though? That flower piece stands for academic or vocational success with young people, civic engagement, employability and economic stability, and then happiness and well-being overall. But we know that we don't just get there. We have to start somewhere. So I'm going to jump you to the bottom of that flower. No, scroll back up to that flower, the developmental context. Where do we start? We have to have healthy soil with our plants. And so in our developmental context, we have things like sparks, belonging, caring adults, challenging growth, youth and adult partnership. So why I point this out to you guys is because in my report, you're seeing me use this language. You're seeing me use sparks, belonging, and all of that. And so what exactly does some of that mean? And I'm not meaning when I say sparks, I'm not saying like a little fire or something like that. We're meaning that sparks are concepts or ideas that interest youth and helping them explore them together. And so all of those 5 bullets, they make up our developmental context. So they make up our rich soil. So we know if we have healthy soil, we're going to then have a plant start to grow. And so then we call that youth thriving. And so you'll see it there in that stem portion. And so then we go and we move into the aspect of having a growth mindset for young people? Are they open to being challenged? Do they have, those kind of social orientations, positive emotions? And then are we helping them with goal setting and management? So those are short outcomes. As we continue into the LEAF portion, those are also short outcomes. So again, are they having, social competency, personal standards, developing all of those, and then continuing to our long-term outcomes, which is the flower portion, which I stated in the beginning. So again, we started this research. So let me back up. 4-H has been doing research with land-grant universities since our start, but Wisconsin has started this Thrive survey. In 2020, they piloted it. And so this Thrive model was actually developed by Mary Arnold, who is a specialist out of Oregon State. So this flower concept and graphic, this is Wisconsin-fied to help it be a little bit more user-friendly to our young people and our adults that we're serving. Okay, let's go to the second page. So what I want to just point out here then is that we have done 2 years of Thrive's data survey. We'll be starting our 3rd year. And so the 2 pieces that, again, I report a lot on, and so that I'll be focusing on are our Sparks and our belonging scores. So if you look at those, the left side is our 2021, and then our right side is 2022. And as you can see, they've gone down. Why have they gone down? We don't know officially. We have ideas, but they're lower. They're lower across the whole state. And so we're putting efforts into that. What do those efforts look like though? So again, we use a volunteer base here in Wisconsin. So we're using volunteers to help with project learning. We're helping them be club leaders who are then helping our youth build those youth adult partnerships by having officers within clubs or engaging youth. We just had everybody submit their annual charter application, which is saying what you plan to do in a program year. We encourage that they involve youth in that planning process to build those youth adult partnerships. So the other thing then kind of exploring that Sparks area is helping new families express what their spark is. So what something is, one of the things that I'm always hearing is, we don't have agriculture, we're not tied to a farm, can we be a part of 4-H? And my answer is absolutely. And so then that opens the door to that conversation of what is your young person into? Or if it is a young person, what are you into? What are your hobbies? And so then we just continue that conversation. And then one of my best success stories is we had an individual who was super into computers. And so we didn't have a club or a project area ready for that individual to jump into, but we formed one. We found a leader that also liked robotics and had computers and like-minded pieces. And so we built that connection, that youth adult partnership. And so now that's a newly chartered club within Adams County. So it really does take a lot of conversation to help articulate what 4-H is in today's time. But we're still here. We're able to accommodate and we're open to all individuals across our community. We just have to start that conversation. This Thrive data can be, I think, a long conversation. I just gave you a quick kind of synopsis as, again, sharing that information. And so I'm curious if any of you have questions, any sort of feedback.
Are there questions from the committee? I have a couple.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned a 4-H club to deal with robotics.
Mhm.
We've got, is that a project or is that a club? So we have a bunch of different clubs. Can you explain that?
Great question. So I'm going to kind of give you a quick history lesson, right? So back in the day, we used to have clubs that meet, community clubs. So they might be multiple different projects and they would meet at a certain space throughout the county at a certain time of date. Okay. And they would focus on many different projects. So that was 4-H's model for a long time. Now we still have that, but we also have this thing called single project clubs. So if I'm a youth that just wants to be in a robotics club and I only want to work on robotics things, or I only want to work on horse project things, I can go to and sign up and be in just that club. Whereas before we used to have countywide, like a livestock or a horse project or a dog project. I'm using examples that we specifically have. So then I would have to be enrolled in a community club and then a countywide project group or club. So that was like two pieces that they had to go to in order to do their Spark, the horse, the robots. Now they can just explore the robots if they want. We also have 4-H after school, 4-H in school, and 4-H military as a state program. Not all of those are delivery clubs for Adams County yet. Again, if there's the need and we can make that happen, we can, but it's an option as a 4-H club. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Excellent. How recent was this, Evan?
That was started in it's new, 2022. The club project really got defined and implemented, and we're still having that conversation of what does this look like?
Okay, so you said we had fall off in 2022. With the introduction of these individual clubs, are we expecting an increase? I mean, what was one of the reasons that you even thought to do the individual clubs to get people so that they could focus on just their interests and maybe bring up sparks and bring up belonging? Actually, all the things have fallen down, but
Yeah, so a decrease you're saying in our, yes. So again, we don't know specifically why that is. Like if we compare our numbers, so in 2021, we had 16 people fill out the survey, and in 2022, we had 11. We don't exactly know. Was that those 5 members graduated out? Was it that they just took a break from 4-H and now it's on hold? We don't exactly know. Our goal, if we look at our numbers, I believe we had 65 members that could have been eligible to take the survey. They all received communication from Wisconsin's 4-H saying take the survey. They've all received communication from me saying take the survey. So now we're going to amp that up. We're going to send everybody a postcard like, hey, this is a legit survey. It's not spam. Please take it. This really does help us, right? So we're continuing to really articulate the importance of taking this survey and hope that we can increase our response rate, and which in turn we get more feedback, which hopes increases our results, not only those 2 areas, but caring adults as well.
sure. Okay, so of the 11, are those 11 from just certain areas? So Easton, I can't remember what
Yeah, so that would
Easton's,
be members.
Arkdale.
Yep. So I don't believe we track like exactly who it was that took it. But yes, it would be members from all across Adams County.
Okay, so we're getting good coverage though.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Also, there is a link provided down in the corner. You can't jump to it off of the report, and for whatever reason, if you type it in, you'll get more information on the project
Cool.
survey results. So, okay, are there any other questions for Evan? Supervisor Mons?
Not dealing with Evan on a daily basis or weekly basis. I just think we got the right person in there. His enthusiasm and just when he speaks about these different things, I just really appreciate that.
Agreed.
I appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Thank you.
Okay, this is for information. So, going on to the 2024 proposed budget. Are there any questions from the committee? Yes, Supervisor Bones.
This moves on to the county board for approval. Is that correct? And the land and water needs to ratify it. Is that correct?
No, I think this is just for discussion. And if there are some things that we feel are problematic, we should bring them up.
Okay, very good.
So are there any discussions for the UW extension budget? Seeing none, I guess we'll move on. So, okay, educators report. Did everyone get access to it? And are there any questions for the staff? Right, there are 2 months attached. Anything? Okay. All right. We will move, pardon? Yep, we will move on to the financials. Did everyone have the opportunity to review the financials? Are there any questions? I guess not. All right. Thank you all for making the trip over here. Appreciate your input. Thank you. All right. Moving on to land and water. Are there any questions for the land and water staff? Also, I don't know if now would be a good time to introduce Colton and have him talk. Colton, putting you on the spot. Do you want to come up or do you want, you can stay there, but if you come up, everybody can see you and hear you and.
Hi, everybody. I'm Phil Velocity.
Are there any questions for Colton? Seeing none, welcome aboard. Thank you, Colton. Okay, so getting back to the report, and it just said September on the top of it, but it does go through, I think, more than that. If I'm correct. Is that correct, Dustin, or
Yeah, they did update it after that. Must not change
the header?
The October?
first.
Do you see October on there?
Yeah.
All right.
So what I did on the agenda, it's split. Because there was live links on some of this. So on the agenda, if you look, land and waters highlighted,
Got it.
that's just September.
September, yep, all right. And that is why I couldn't find the other one. So, okay, did everyone have the opportunity to review the report? Are there any questions? Seeing none, it looks like you guys are really busy. And I think we will just move on. Dams report.
All right. So nothing major. The one topic that was brought up under the progress or project status report. I've been attempting for a little over a year to find somebody to come in and take care of that rebar at the Cottonville, well, in Roshicree. I do finally have a contractor in place. What we were hoping to do is actually pull out the chunk of concrete that has the rebar stuck in it. This company went out, they were finally able to put a pretty decent or better idea on what the size is, about 4 foot, 4 by 4 by 4. And the piece of rebar sticks out. It's a couple 3 feet long, and it does come within how close to the surface?
6 inches.
6 inches of the surface.
8 feet.
And it's the rebar that's causing the issues. Still don't know how it ended up there or exactly. That's the thought. But when did it show up? Any of that kind of stuff. The proposal that he came up with, he didn't feel his equipment was large enough to actually pull the whole thing out. So he's going to dive and cut the rebar off. I did share that with Bruce so he could share it with the Lake Management District. And they've seemed in favor of that option, at least as a first step. If it keeps causing issues, get back to the drawing board then. And then during that, I'm also working with the contractor to get rid of these 2 piles of riprap that had fallen off of a boat out in the middle. And we missed our window for this year. Just by the time he was able to give me a number. And so we're shooting for immediately in the spring.
So can you tell the committee what the issues were in regards to the rebar? What was the problem? Anyone?
If there's traffic, if single, it was no problem because people will stay in the middle. But if there's traffic and a boat was going to the right, it actually was opening up hulls of boats.
That would be a problem.
We think that big rock though is a cork. So if we took it out, it probably would drain all the water. No, I'm gonna keep it.
Okay. Okay, so then the riprap also, if they're not watching where they're going, they could
Definitely.
damage their hull?
No, that takes off the lower units of motors, outboard motors and such, because it is only about 18 inches below the surface of the water.
And
it is
Boo,
at the base of the, as best as we can tell, the base of the pile of rock is about 10 feet at the base, and then it comes up about 2.5 feet. So it actually happened when the last project was done on Roche Cree Lake, where riprap was used as shoreline protection. And apparently on the way back to the boat launch, it was lost off of a barge. So it's been there for quite some time, and it's been marked. So we have people that the problem lately is the fact that people are taking that stuff. They're taking the bottles, they're taking the sticks, they're taking the markers and removing them as either whatever reason they're doing it. So this now has created a problem.
so people are not aware
Correct.
that they're, okay.
And it's directly south of the boat launch. If they go out far enough and they just continue to go south in launching their boat, they're in trouble.
They'll hit it. So buoys have been established and whatnot, they're just being removed.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any restitution from when that was dropped off from a barge? Who
No.
was involved? No.
Velocic.
Okay. And that was looked into?
Yes.
Okay, so now it's on the county?
Right. This happened how many years ago? Like 10?
Chris at that time was the land and water, probably 2 years before he left. And it's been some time. So I can't remember exact, because my property was one of the properties that had the riprap done to it.
So
I
we're,
really can't remember. It has to be about 10 years.
okay. And this hasn't been an ongoing thing, we're just going back to it?
I'm sorry, but it has been an ongoing thing. And however, when we finally were digging into it, we found that in essence, we were told, and this is because of, we also had a major safety issue with trunks of trees, not stumps, but actual 12 to 14 foot trees that were in the deeper part of the lake that created a major swimming hazard, because that's where the pontoon boats and everybody will swim at that end of the lake. And if somebody dove in and would hit this was only 3 feet below the water. So when we were going to remove those, we found that the DNR said, well, we own the water, the county, and they didn't tell us anything else. But then at that time, the land and water conservation supervisor was Kaysen. And he said, well, it's kind of unusual with Roche Cree. We own the dirt, but the DNR controls the water. So we had to get approval from the DNR and the county to remove these trees. Well, then we started talking about these rocks, which are created an issue. That's how the county got involved in that.
Okay, so the trees have been removed or they're still in the process thereof?
They're gone.
They're gone.
Yes.
Okay, so now it's just the riprap.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions for the dams report? Sorry, other than mine. Doreen?
What's the projected cost as far as getting the rebar and the riprap out?
So I have not received a bid on the riprap part. The rebar is $1,200. And I have attempted to get 3 different contractors there. He was the one that was able to and actually get me a number. I don't anticipate the riprap's gonna be, it's gonna be higher than 1,200, but I would say similar cost.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to county forest report.
No change in the current county forest. We have had progress in our new endeavor, or attempted new endeavor. We do have an accepted offer, as of like this morning. So we're still working on the contract and it hasn't been signed or anything like that, but it's, huge leaps forward. And there'll be a lot more coming towards you guys soon.
Thank you, Supervisor Mons.
As an order of business, this project was discussed in a closed session.
Correct,
So we need to continue the discussion of this project in a closed session, if I'm not mistaken.
correct, when it comes
good.
down to funding and whatnot. Knowles Nelson grant on county forest.
Yep, so that was, it was, the whole package is ready to go to the Joint Finance Committee. The, last second, DNR said, well, we need a title commitment. And we can't do that until we had an accepted offer. So it's been on hold. It's ready to pull the trigger at any time once we have that title commitment. Now we have the accepted offer. The rest of it should be falling into place. I'm anticipating, and maybe optimistically, but for the December committee meeting and December county board, you guys will be, or at least starting at the committee meeting, discussing this and hopefully passing it on. And we would have numbers, and I'll work with county manager and Jeff to find out the whole closed, make sure we're doing it the right way on that.
And I'll come back to that when we're talking about budget too. So, okay, are there any other questions for county forest program for Dustin? Seeing none, let's move on to the 2024 proposed budget. So with that in mind, hold on, let me grab mine out. And I don't know if you want to come down to county forest, is that part of this? Hold on. Because it's land acquisition, isn't it, or something? And I should have circled it.
Madam Chair,
Say it again?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Kyle.
I did not have the county forest budget included in this packet.
Okay. And why? Maybe that was a better question.
Yeah, that was a newer budget that we just started. So, in the future, I'll have that included on there, but, have that.
Is it under anything, Kyle, without a name connected to it?
Well, I have it available. We could link it also. But yeah, it was included in the budget book in its entirety.
Okay. I guess I would like to see that in the budget itself. As line items. If we could have that. Are there any other questions in regards to the 2024 budget? Because I do have another one, a concern that I have. Because of the division of duties between the land and water and planning and zoning staff, and what those will entail budgetarily, I guess I would like to send our budget, land and water budget, back to admin FI and address that before our, what is that, November 9th, right? Right, this Thursday. So, because I'm not seeing salaries and whatnot, and I didn't see this in planning and zoning either, but we're sharing duties, land and water duties from positions that are no longer being staffed are now being put back to planning and zoning. Help with planning and zoning is my understanding from past committee meetings, correct, Dustin? So like Megan Steckelberg's, her stuff is somehow being dispersed among two different departments in terms of duties, some of them, maybe not all of them.
A very small portion.
Okay,
A very small portion has moved over on the financial side. And that's more as a central point of location, but now with centralized financing, a lot of that has fallen back on like Kyle's department.
so maybe this is a question for Kyle. Do we push this back to admin fine? Say, we kind of like to know moving forward how these different duties, financing, budgetary concerns would be applicable to the shared staff. And yes, Supervisor McLaughlin.
Thank you. I just want to say, Chairman Chapey, that I fully agree with you. And I think that we should be shown, if anything, we should be shown too much, not enough. Thank you.
Doreen, thank you.
I noticed what my error was on my last question with UW Extension because I had similar concerns. I looked at the department proposal and then the county manager for 2024. And that's how I compared them. And originally I thought that the 2023 and the 2024 salaries were the same. I see there is a slight difference of approximately 13,000 if I'm doing my math in my head correctly. And I'm just wondering, is that approximately what Megan's salary was? There needs to be a little bit increase for cost of living and performance, but that would be my question is the budget for salaries decreased appropriately with the loss of a position?
Kyle or Cynthia?
Madam Chair. Yeah, so this would have any step increases that employees would be getting at their 5, 10, 15, 20-year step increases. So there may be employees that are getting step increases. This also, it does have the, what was the position title? No, Megan. The conservation program coordinator position eliminated from that budget. And then it has the county conservationist position pay grade increased by 1 pay grade. So it's including all the changes in staffing that have happened in land and water.
So you mentioned land and water, Kyle. Is it doing anything for staff that are in the planning and zoning department that are taking on extra duties?
Madam Chair, I guess I'm not entirely sure what the question is.
I'm just saying, are we sharing funds from the land and water budget to provide for extra duties imposed on someone else outside of the department?
No.
We are not.
I guess my question was the amount decreased appropriately due to the lost position was not answered. I don't know what Megan was paid. Therefore, I don't know if it was decreased appropriately.
Kyle?
I'm just pulling it up here really quick. So,
Madam Chair,
Yes, Cynthia.
may I address Kyle? Kyle, are you bringing up that resolution where it moved funds from land and water over to?
oh yeah, we also did
Yep.
that. Yeah, yep. Sorry, Madam Chair. Yeah, we had that resolution as well that had moved funds from land and water over to finance.
Is that the centralized?
Yep, correct. Yeah, so the $13,000 decrease, it looks like it wasn't that much of a decrease, but that was because we also had that resolution amending the budget. I'm gonna pull that one up so then I can tell you how much it ended up decreasing it. It ended up decreasing wages by about $27,000 in land and water conservation. So then 27,000 and then the $13,000 decrease you see here, that's about $40,000 roughly.
Um, I guess, yeah, that doesn't really answer the question.
So Madam Chair, we had in 2023's budget, we had budgeted for 5 positions, $291,000 was the annual compensation of all 5 of those positions. In 2024's budget, we have 4 positions, and that budget is roughly $250,000.
Does anybody actually have the figure? I can't imagine they don't. Somebody doesn't have what that position that Megan held, what it paid.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Kyle.
Yep, the position was in pay grade 14. Megan was compensated, we had estimated $47,000 for 2023.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
It answers the question, but I don't believe the budget was appropriately decreased for staffing. That
Yep.
would be my answer. If she was paid $47,000 and it's only decreased 13.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Kyle.
Yep, so that column there that says 2023 revised budget, that would be with the budget amendments. So we had that budget amendment that had removed $27,000 from land and water wages.
Can you point that out to me again? Because I must be looking at the wrong numbers. I've got the 250,663 for the 2024. Then I have the 2023 revised budget of 263,793. Am I in the right ballpark here?
Yes.
Okay.
That's where we're looking. Yeah, so
Okay.
that 263,793 reflects the revised budget. So the budget as amended by the county board. Because we had done the budget amendment in the middle of 2023.
And that was to bring funds over for the centralized accounting. And that went from what original figure, Kyle?
Roughly 290,000.
So the simple,
You go ahead, Supervisor Mons.
I'm sorry, so the simple math then, it reduced it by 40,000, then the cost of living went up 7,000. So that's where the 250,000 came up then.
So we did not have a cost of living increase, did we? It was just a performance increase? Wasn't that 0.9?
Madam Chair?
Yes,
There
Kyle.
is a 4% cost of living adjustment for all positions in the budget. The 0.9%, that was the amount that we had put in there that we were able to fund for an additional cost of living adjustment to match with the Midwest Consumer Price Index, which was 4.9% for the month of April 2023.
Okay. All right. So it was a 2-step colon and the second step failed.
Correct. Yeah, that additional 0.9% failed at county board.
Okay. Dustin?
And then also because of the land conservation is being reclassified to county conservationists, that pay increase would also be reflected in that figure.
So is the 92 funding also in here elsewhere that we would be aware of for the county conservationist position?
So
Chapter 92, it goes into 100%, 75%, 50% of a staff.
So under the
funding.
expense portion, that's the full salary
Yep.
of all the individuals.
Right.
If you go towards the top.
It's the middle of page 1.
Thank you. Oh, there it is. It's 219,895.
Okay.
That is where that is the storm grant is housed to offset in the revenue side or the expense side of the salaries and benefits.
Thank you. So we're saying that we've gone down to 4 positions. We are still sharing those duties with another department, but we're not paying for them. This department isn't paying for them. Land and water.
Right, and the only duty that's getting shared is the writing up vouchers and sending them to Kyle.
Okay. Well, it's still, okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
so land and water, planning and zoning, they're both general fund departments. I just kind of want to make a comparison. In the past, we had county parks department. They're also in the general fund. They had been mowing county dams. Land and water was paying the county parks for mowing of the dams, but really the money wasn't going anywhere because it's all a part of the general fund. So land and water was expensing it. County parks was recognizing it as revenue, but it was all general fund. So I guess that's kind of like the comparison to make with this whole situation is, yes, there are staff there that are assisting with certain duties for land and water, but it's all in the general fund. They're all getting paid through the general fund.
And there's no paper trail per se, right? Because what's reflected in our budget should reflect some type of paper trail in terms of money, even in a general fund is my understanding. So hold on one second though. Supervisor McLaughlin had a question.
Well, question or comments, with what Kyle, this is a little bit off somewhere, but not entirely. With what Kyle was just saying about, like at one point in time, one department paying another for a service. Well, of course, when I still worked here, there was a lot of that. And actually, just one example to bring up a point. That's maybe not always the best route to go. I probably have a prime example, and that was getting my department vehicle serviced. I used to do it at the highway shop. Well, it cost me twice as much as if I could go to Fenner's. The highway cost me twice as much as what I could go. So what did Phil do? It was coming out of my budget. I quit going to the highway shop and I went to Earl Fenner's garage and got done for half the price. I'm just making a point that I think it's probably normal for someone to think, well, yeah, go to another county department. You're probably going to get the best deal. I would debate that. And the other thing I just want to point out too, that, yeah, it's been no satisfactory answer why there hasn't been a compensation assigned for planning and zoning staff that are doing land and water things. Cause I recall sitting here maybe around 3 months ago, and the director told us that there were going to be several duties that he was going to do away with, and he was told that no, he's not, and that how are you going to handle them? Well, the zoning staff would take care of, can do all that, which I found questionable at the time, because if they got all that free time, I mean, there's answers that we should be given and we're not getting them.
Cynthia. Thank you, Supervisor McLaughlin.
Madam Chair, Kyle, do you want to explain what duties actually went from land and water that now finance centralized accounting is handling? And then Dusty, we were talking about moving duties over to planning and zoning. Can you kind of describe what those duties are that are now being covered by your staff? And then also you talked about, a particular event that may not happen, but it did because we have, I guess we've outreached for volunteers to help us now. So there are things that are being covered through volunteers, and these are people that are actually reached out to us more than happy to help us with these programs. And I think have had an interest in doing these programs in the past. So can you guys please describe what functions, Megan, what functions actually moved over to planning and zoning versus what went to finance? Dollars did follow finance. So because through the centralized accounting, we were moving funds from land and water to fund positions in centralized accounting. Centralized accounting is not dedicated strictly for those funds, right? Centralized accounting is took on land and water, but then also taking on other aspects. It's not just land and water. So that's why that money moved over. So do you guys want to maybe talk about what went to finance, centralized accounting, what went to planning and zoning, and then I guess maybe talk on the volunteers.
Sure. All right, Madam Chair. So yes, the items that we've taken over really is just handling, preparing and paying all of the vouchers for the department. In the near future, we're gonna move towards assisting them with grants as well. And making sure all the financial stuff related to grants is filed and appropriate.
There was a day when, I'm probably gonna do like I often do. I offend some people, and it's not my intention. I'm just here to state what's truth. Once upon a time, department heads handled their grants. And I would think that education these days should be even better so that they're more equipped to do so. It seems like this is not the first time that subject has been brought up here about, and I continue to wonder why department heads aren't able to handle grants on their own.
So Supervisor McLaughlin, if I may say, when we did this whole centralized grant writing was part of that. Unfortunately, I also agree that I think it would have been better to have each department responsible for their own grant writing, because who knows it better, but that's a moot point. So thank you for your comment. And then Dustin, you were also going to speak. And when you do, could you also talk about the forward work that you were also stating? You're going to reintroduce some duties in the future. So, and I think you mentioned that it was in 2024. And I can't recall the specifics. But again, I think that was towards planning and zoning and land and water.
I will attempt to do that. Okay, so Kyle covered what moved to centralized finance or centralized accounting previously. And I mean, I guess the best way to do it is kind of just talk about what Megan did in the office. So she was the central point for getting the mail, paying bills, receiving money. That's one component of what she did. A lot of that moved to essentially Lauren, Lauren and Janine in conjunction, but primarily Lauren. Yes. And the amount of bills that they have is very minimal, on the order of, if I had to estimate, I'd say 1 bill a week. So that went with to the zoning division, and since then some of that workload has eased off actually because of the centralized finance or accounting. The other primary functions that she did participate in or coordinate, one was the education day, and if I remember correctly, that was what I said is very possibly not happening this year. I want to say about the middle of summer, possibly June-ish, I would have said that. And the primary reason for that is historically it's been about the first or second week that the kids come back to school. So it has to be in place at sometime in May. Because of the timing of her departure, that was right when we would have been coordinating that with the teaching staff. Over the summer, Cynthia and I had a number of conversations, and we actually found somebody who worked for the UW and has a lot of involvement in various groups in the county, and she was very willing to spearhead that organization. Plus, with her position at UW, it actually tied into it. That is her position there. Ancillary. We ended up, so we were able to do it. We did back it off a few weeks later than what it has been in the last couple of years, but there was, as far as I'm concerned, it was a success. We were able to reach out with, a number friends of the Rocha Cree State Park. My entire staff was there, assisting. From what I've seen, it went well, or from what I've heard, and when I was there, it went well. So that was one aspect of what she did. That essentially was taken care of between myself and a volunteer, and the staff helped last year. They helped this year, so I mean, no change there. With the tree and shrub sale, Colton has been so still within the Land and Water Division. Colton has been spearheading that. He's ordered the trees and shrubs, and as usual, that'll be in April for pickup. Poster contests, that is also something that Colton's taking care of, and he will be that portion of, or that project is basically kicked off here in the last week or so. The other component that Megan did that I don't think was necessarily part of her job duties, but this is what she had done. She assisted in situations where two people needed to go to a job site for some reason. Megan a lot of times was that second person. We haven't had the situation arise a lot lately. We do have non-metallic mine inspections coming up here in the next month, which is important to have two people at, and that we have two within the Land and Division staff that'll be going to that. There have been, as a special one-off project, getting the water monitoring devices up and running on the dams. I did have one of my inspectors doing that, more because of his knowledge of electrical and the fact that he had already done the well monitoring, which is the zoning department's or zoning division side. So he was already familiar with the company and the equipment. So I had him also do the dam ones also. And that, best I can tell is the one that you're thinking of that I was going to bring back up next year was the outdoor education days, which still did end up happening this year.
Okay, so is it a volunteer person at UW Extension that is doing that, or a staff, an employee that's
A
doing?
UW employee that volunteered for us.
How does that equate to budgetary concerns, or doesn't it?
Yeah, it didn't.
Wow,
It didn't cost us anything.
she deserves a medal.
She does, and she did a phenomenal job. We bought for the people that did present and volunteer that day. We got them subs.
Good deal. Okay, so poster contest, silent auction.
The silent auction was something that was not part of her job duties. That was because she was the secretary of, or
Lake Winnebago,
right.
right? And now that's Kiefer is the secretary, if I'm.
Which still isn't. I've been on committees throughout my life throughout my career for, say, zoning administrators, that side of it. When I served on the executive board, that was over and above and not included in anything dealing with my job duties. If I wanted to, in this case, put together silent auction items, that was on you. That's not a requirement by any means.
That I'm not sure of, but go ahead, Doreen, and then Supervisor Wimmer.
I just had a question about the grant portion moving to centralized accounting, and that the grant writing, or is that just the paying or kind of the accounting portion of it?
May I?
Yes.
Kyle, you're gonna argue? Okay. the way I understand it to work, and somebody said it earlier about where the expertise lies, and that is within, in this situation, within our division, our department. Um, Grant writing is a very specialized technique, and how I envision this happening when the person starts and we start getting into it. If we find a grant that we want to apply for, we would sit down with that person, give them the details, our knowledge. They know kind of the key words, key phrases, what grant the people who are rating the grants are looking for. They have the knowledge to help ensure that the grant gets approved on, like, say, through the DNR or DACAP or any, wherever it would be. And then beyond that, once the grant is approved or obtained, they'd also make sure that if there's quarterly reporting due, with their position being basically solely towards grants, or primarily, they track, okay, well, we need to make a request on this day. Here's the deadlines, and throughout the entire county. And this isn't just a land and water thing. Making sure that we meet all the requirements for the grants.
I'm just going to give a word of caution, is that the Adams Friendship Area School District went to essentially one person writing grants, and teachers, specifically the volunteer that helped you with that day, lost out on a lot of grants because they weren't allowed to. They had to go through that one person, and they were overwhelmed and couldn't meet timelines. So I just want to give you a word of caution on giving it to one person to take care of.
Also, and I could be wrong on this, but one of the reasons we centralized grants was so that departments didn't have to stay aware of grants coming down the pike. We were going to have this individual as a clearinghouse. So what Dustin is expressing is very different from what I understood to be going on.
Madam Chair. Okay, so centralized accounting, the grant specialist, that'll be in there. That'll be one of the duties that they do. It's not just grants. It'll probably be contracts, because they kind of both go together. If you think about it, contracts and then grants. So the expertise certainly lies in at the department level. So the department level has to do their due diligence in seeking out grants. Okay, because that's their expertise. There are many grants out there, some that are Trojan horses, if you will. Hey, we're going to do this. We're going to fund a position for 3 years. But guess what, county? After that, you are obligated to hire somebody full time. So we have to be careful about that kind of stuff. But again, so at the department level, they're the experts to know what grants that may be appropriate and some that may not be, at least for now. Maybe down the road, certain grants will come into play. So the expertise level is the department level. So they have to keep their eyes open. Now, what happens with this grant specialist? That's the reporting. That's the actual filing of the grants. They do work in conjunction with the department to kind of, to put a package together, that one that's going to get approved, because this person, there's a review process. You have the department level specialists who kind of have the expertise to know what they want in the scope of a grant. And then you have this expert level, I'm going to say just expert level, someone that's going to be grant countywide, to know what lingo to use to get you that scope that might be recognized. Most grants are competitive, so you want to have someone that's got an expertise in that level. And I have had experience in working with a grant specialist. You just have to have the right person. I mean, some people get overwhelmed, but you just have to get the right person in the seat for that. And then if, so again, the expert level is at the department. So they're going to be seeking grants on their own, but at the same time, this grant specialist will also be seeking grants. It's going to be the sheriff's department. It's going to be HHS. It's going to be, I guess the broad spectrum is the county-wide. So this grant specialist, another key point about them is that these grants will have certain deadlines. And so if there's a renewal process, that's where they come in to say, hey, department head, just to give you heads up, in 60 days, this grant's going to renew. We need to get together to work on the scope again of a new grant, or extending grants. Some grants you know, if you don't meet the expenses or you don't get your projects done with a certain time frame, sometimes you can extend the grant. That's where the specialist is going to come in too. That's what I see happening here. So it is going to take a load off departments, but not a complete load. Again, the experts are the departments. And who knows, maybe over time, this person gets so savvy that, you know, maybe that'll transition later. But for now, the plan is expert level is the department.
Thank you. Supervisor McLaughlin, then Supervisor Wimmer.
Thank you. I just want to back up a little bit and make a comment to a phrase that I'm hearing, and it makes me very uncomfortable, and I heard it again today, and that is, it's not required. Okay, so then maybe we should just make a list of everything that Adams County does that is not required and just stop doing it. I mean, that's from a very few, that's what it sounds like I'm hearing. It's not required. That's the fall all get out for why we're quit doing something, because it's not required. And I don't know. I thought at one point, well, I don't think, I know, at one point in time, this county for damn sure sought to do things, everything they could, whether required or not, if it was to help the citizens. But we're going the other way. And it's not required. Okay, it's not worth it. It's not required. It's disturbing to me, it really is.
Thank you. Supervisor Wimmer.
Yeah, there's something I've been thinking about since we started talking about planning and zoning and land and water. Like, for example, how does Dustin's salary get broken out from zoning administrator and land and water, whatever he does in land and water? How does that break out in the budget?
Cynthia.
Madam Chair, it's one department.
What's the one department?
Cal, what's the official name of the department?
It's the zoning and land conservation
Yep.
department with three different divisions. So within the department, it's all included in that.
But this budget is for,
Yep. So my compensation is on the zoning. It is only shown on the zoning portion. Because that's where it had been historically before they were combined. So that's my understanding why it stayed there.
hold on, is that appropriate to have that kind of situation where the funding is not specific? What word am I looking for? But,
Which budget is it in?
right, I mean,
Okay, everything that Dustin does on land and water is in planning and zoning, so it's in their budget?
that's what it sounded like to me.
Will that budget decrease now that there's a land conservationist, which you didn't have before? That's the person who historically ran the land and water conservation department, was the
County
conservationist.
conservation.
Madam Chair, I can address that.
Certainly, Justin, thank you.
So when we changed that position a couple, I guess it'd be about 3-4 months ago, they are still not the county conservationist, Colton, is not a department head. They do have supervisory responsibility over that. But there's still limitation on the level of authority within that position. That's why it only went from, it only had gotten moved up one position. As far as, my position was not reclassed because I'm still the overall director of the same amount of people.
Okay, and then there was Doreen and Supervisor McLaughlin. Did you already make your comment or? Okay, Doreen.
I'm just wondering why we are the Land and Water and UW Extension Committee, why it isn't Land and Water and Planning and Zoning Committee. Those two seem to be more married than UW Extension and Land and Water.
Yeah, there are statutory designations, Doreen. I believe maybe Cynthia, do you wish to? Okay. We could bring that up next time too. However, I am concerned about passing this budget on because I really think it needs a little bit of work and determination on specifics. Another question I had for you is, transfer to capital project fund is 269, 333. And on the last page, I believe, hold on, that says capital fund balance applied is 253. And then the debt service fund, hold on, I might have my, no. I guess I've got the 253 here, I've got the 269. I think it's the only place where it said transfer to capital project fund. And the numbers aren't the same. And then we also have debt service fund balance applied. So maybe we could discuss that too. But anyways, let's do that first. And again, maybe I'm looking at numbers incorrectly, but I do try to study these things, so
Madam Chair.
yes.
Yeah, so we have $269,333 of the debt service fund balance that's going to be applied over to the capital project fund for land and water as a whole. Land and water department has 3 different capital items or capital needs within the division. So they have a GPS surveyor that has $2,333 of the debt service fund balance applied. Then they have vehicle replacements. There's no debt service fund balance applied there. And then they have the dams, which is $267,000 of debt service fund balance applied.
Okay.
And you're going to see that the department request was 269,333 then also on the operating side. And then we reduced that down to 0 because we are transferring a large chunk over to the highway department for the county highway M project. And we did not feel comfortable with having that much transferred out of the general fund. So we shifted the burden to the debt service fund as we'd been stating that we were doing with the 23 budget if we didn't have the funds available, and also with the 24 budget.
It's just not very clear to me. Not your explanation. I'm just saying, just following through the numbers and the line items and stuff. I see where we're underneath the Silverado. I see we're underneath the county dams. And I saw that we were underneath the GPS surveyor equipment. So yeah. Back to my original comment. If admin and finance are the ones that are responsible for studying over these budgets before we see them on Thursday, I guess I would like this budget to go back to admin finance and work out all of these concerns, questions, what have you, when it comes to putting funds in the budget.
If you need a motion for that, I make it.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to push this back to admin 5 for restudying. Is that correct, Phil? Am I getting the right language? You wish to make your motion? Why don't you state your
The
motion?
motion is to me to do just as you stated, to send it back to admin finance, noting the specific concerns that have been mentioned. And then maybe however you put an et cetera on it for them to scrutinize the entire budget, but maybe we have some big red flags you want them to be for sure to look at. Yes, that's what I want.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Yes, Doreen.
There are people on this committee that will not be at county board. We're not part of county board members. We won't see the budget.
Well, you're seeing it now. On 11/9, there will be a budget meeting at 6 p.m. You are certainly more than welcome to attend.
Actually, that, I'm sorry, that'll be a budget hearing.
budget hearing.
Here, I mean, because that's when it'll get, well, supposedly enacted or defeated.
Put back on, put off to the county board. So you are certainly invited, Doreen, to attend.
How often do you make meetings on such short notice? I think it's
agree.
very inappropriate and the budget should be rejected and come back. It shouldn't just be passed through.
Right.
Well, that's what we made a motion for.
No, you made a motion to have it edited and go to the budget hearing and
No,
have
we-
explanation.
We actually, the motion, if I understand it correctly, is to put it back to admin finance for reconsideration of our concerns. Admin finance will be the one to say, we want X, Y, Z, or we don't want X, Y, Z, and that will be what is presented on 11-9, if it goes that far.
Then I think the motion should be that the committee rejected the budget. It shouldn't be that we asked for reconsideration or more explanation. It should be we rejected it because there's people that aren't going to be there. We as a committee aren't going to accept it. Then it should be denied.
Supervisor McLaughlin.
Okay, I'm willing to remove my motion and do as Doreen states, and just make a motion to reject the budget, and then the rest of what I said, keep it intact. And that is rather than just say, we shouldn't just say no, we should then extend the reasons that we've discussed of why. But reject it. I will switch my motion to that, and I don't know if Supervisor Wimmer is willing to.
I will second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Yes. You might want to put it on microphone.
Madam Chair, this is not an action item. So, but if there are specific concerns about this budget, which I'm still not clear on what exactly you want to go back to finance. So if that's the case, I mean, we can work on stuff, I believe, right? If there's some numbers that need to change, but I'm kind of lost on what do you want? This is.
So in other words, essentially, we have no say, we have no power. We might as well just move on.
Is that what
Madam
you're?
Chair, that is not what I said. I said this is not an actionable item, but at the same time, I said, if you have concerns about this budget, I need to know what they are. If there's a line item, if there's a thing, because right now it's vague to me. I was like, okay, what am I bringing back to finance? What is it specifically?
I think we have some ambiguity when it comes to funding, what positions are funded and paper trails of that funding was what I was hearing. I could be wrong.
I am also still not accepting of only a 13,000 decrease for a lost position.
And you did understand that there was also the other money that went down on the revised.
Yes, but
Okay.
again, was that her position? The revised, I thought that went to centralized accounting. That wasn't because her lost position.
Right.
Okay,
That is my understanding. We just passed that money off to centralized accounting.
right.
Correct.
So that doesn't mean that
We've decreased
we
it.
decreased the salary appropriately for a lost position.
So those are
Madam Chair?
concerns. Yes.
Okay, to address what's on the wage line. What's on the wage line in the budget is what's needed to fund the positions that are currently in there that will be in there for 2024. So if you don't have an understanding of, if you have a number in your head that you thought it should have changed, I don't know what else other than to maybe send out a communication to this committee to let you know the exact changes in the budget. And Kyle, did you have, sorry.
Oh,
Kyle.
yeah, Madam Chair. So
Go
as
ahead.
part of the 2024 budget book that I had sent out to all county board members on October 26th, I did put in there just before all of the budgets start, I have a summary of all the changes of positions within the general fund.
Correct.
So that kind of goes over what changed, where all the money went to.
And I think perhaps in the future, any committee member should probably be aware of this, not just as a supervisor on the board. Because obviously there is some limiting input for Doreen and for Mary Lou. So I think that's one of the stumbling blocks we also have. Is that correct, Doreen?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea what the salaries were for last year. I have no idea what the salary breakdown is for this year. I have no idea. That's why for me, looking at this, it's an inappropriate number. When she got paid $47,000 and it's only a decrease by 13. So, and I know you keep saying, well, it's centralized accounting, but to me, that means nothing. To me, it sounds like there are roles that were taken from, and maybe I'm wrong. There are roles and duties that were taken from this department and now went to this centralized accounting. But that's not a reduction in salary. That's roles changing positions. So in other words, you're moving a pot of money from your savings to your checking, or you know what I mean? You're still spending the same amount of money. It didn't decrease by a lost position.
Do you understand the concerns?
Madam Chair, I'm going to try to repeat. The positions that are in their seats now for 2024 are funded, okay? If it doesn't make sense and the 13, you think it should go down by 13,000, I'm not sure what their request is. If you think that the budget, okay, let's hypothetical. If you think that 13,000 wasn't enough, then are you asking us to reduce the budget by $47,000 and then potentially have a position that's not funded? There are other factors involved. It's not a 13, it's not a simple calc. There was money that was moved over. There was an increase in COLA. There was a reclassification of a position that required more dollars. All of that netted in that change that you're talking about. So if that doesn't make sense and what you want is a detailed, like here's what it was and here where it all went, that's a communication we could send to you so that you're comfortable. But there's no way that we can reduce that number any further, or we wouldn't be able to support the staff that we have in the seats for 2024 in that department. So that's where I guess I'm unclear.
Supervisor McLaughlin?
Thank you. Doreen, would it help you and me and anybody else here that's concerned if we were provided a employee staff list for P&Z and Land and Water going back probably at least till the beginning of 2022, listing all the positions, salaries, and for maybe even back to 2021, because there've been some, I don't know when all these people started quitting. I don't even remember anymore. But if we had a 3-year history maybe of positions, the salaries paid, and I think it would definitely, I think, help. Would you agree, Doreen?
I would, but again, that doesn't help for today. You
Right.
know, to me, it's you've come unprepared, essentially, to explain your numbers. You're just telling me, trust me, I got you covered. I don't trust. I want data. And to me, you didn't come prepared.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Kyle.
also in the budget book, we have position counts by department. So we do have that listed in the budget book, the number of positions by department.
Thank you, Kyle. Supervisor Wimmer?
Well, I think we have a problem here. We have a voting member on a committee that has not been offered to see the budget. Bottom line. Can't see the budget and she's can't explain what's going on because she has nothing to go from.
So
How does this happen? I don't know.
so the impression I'm getting is that we can't discuss something that we don't have the full picture of. Yes, Supervisor McLaughlin.
Not that you forgot, but there is still a motion and a second on the floor to reject it, I believe.
I agree. My understanding is that that is not appropriate as we cannot act on it. which discussion actually is action to me anyways, but whatever.
Is it that we can't act on it? I'd like to.
It just says discuss
Well, that-
2024, or actually it doesn't. Actually, it says 2024 proposed budget.
Well, yeah, well,
And actually, hold on one second. Maybe this was removed. It was
Uh-huh.
removed. So discuss and or act on all items in an agenda were removed.
sure, of course they were.
the
Imagine
agenda.
that, imagine that. It's hard, isn't it?
So, okay, I guess there is nothing further to be discussed. I certainly hope that everything that we have discussed here is shared on 11/9. And I understand that you won't maybe be able to attend, Doreen.
Again, I often caution people when they're disgusted with the school board, because the school board removed all their power, gave all their power to their administrator, and they essentially have no power. And that's why the school system is the way it is. And we are going down, as the county board, down that slippery same slope. You're giving up all your power, and yeah, that's just my word of caution.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Okay, so one thing that you could act on, if you guys want us to put information together, now's the time to tell me. I mean, we can get that information at least communicated out to you, if that's what you want.
Obviously, that was one of the requests. So Kyle, could you send that information out to committee members, whether they're on the board or not?
And Madam Chair, do we want to go back to 21 as was suggested too, or?
Certainly, although I think I don't know if it's appropriate or not to know what a position carries for a salary or not. I mean, obviously, there's no names attached to it. It's a position. So I don't think we run any problems there. So yeah, I would say that that would be a good thing. Is everyone in agreement? I don't want to speak just for myself. Yes? Okay. Do we need a formal motion? Okay, all right. So, okay. So we have that. Lake Alliance report.
I have a
Just
comment.
before we move on, just
Yep.
quick question. There was other questions that I think you had, and if there are any other questions that need more information, we should have that
Certainly.
on the list.
Certainly, I'm so sorry. Are there any other inputs from the committee? Supervisor Mons?
I think we need to go back to a question that I asked before that was not paid attention to apparently. If this is the case, this committee would ratify this budget, accept this budget and move it to the board. The same thing that we tried to do with the UW extension budget, although it was not necessary. In this basis, it's the same thing. So if we want power to be able to do this, then something has to change that this then committee ratifies to the board. And then we have that power to do something in it. Right now, it is not. This is just information to us.
Do you wish to put that on next month's agenda?
Do I?
I do.
Okay, you'll make a motion.
Yes, I move that we discuss having a policy that the committee ratifies or declines a budget.
Do I have a second?
I have a comment or two. I don't know if you want to wait for a second or,
We need a second to discuss it.
all right, I'll second it for the sake of discussion.
Okay,
I'm just want to clarify what Supervisor Mons is I have an extreme concern for all the power the county board has given to a single person. I have a huge problem with that. I'm just wondering if Supervisor Mons, I think we're just taking a tiny chip off the iceberg. If all we're gonna do is try to move something forward that relates specifically and only to this committee. This is a widespread problem throughout the county. It's not just this committee. It's a widespread problem. We don't have the authority for anything anymore. Not even to know, let alone decide. We don't even have the authority to know. Thank you.
Thank you Supervisor McLaughlin. Okay, so the question, okay, Doreen?
I'm just gonna say it has to start somewhere. So if we start it, maybe then it will move on. Maybe it does need to come before county board and have it as a whole, but it has to start somewhere.
So I guess this is a question for you. County Manager Hager, do we have the ability to push our policy making request when it comes to ratifying a budget to an agenda that's upcoming?
What makes you think you don't have the authority? If somebody's gonna tell
Well,
you.
so
make-
agendas need to be posted
They
and,
do.
yeah, so,
I'm sorry, but it's just, there's too much complacency, just period, amongst the entire board. Stop asking, start telling what you want.
so I'm saying I'm fine with the motion
Yeah.
that's on the floor.
But I'm.
But
just
I'm
saying-
also asking, in addition to that, can we, as a committee, make a motion and a second to push this even further
Sure you can.
into
It's America.
the
You
full
can do
county
it.
board agenda? Because we have time, right? So I'm asking. Okay, so we could put this, is Jeff on? Jeff is not on. So then I guess the motion is not only locally to this committee, but are you also saying, I wish to make this motion to the full county board from this committee?
It's worth the discussion, I believe, at the minimum. I think the concerns brought up on this committee and not having any power to act on it, I think should be concerning for the whole county board. You know, district, I want to say district wide, but county wide.
We don't have any more power than the average citizen. I found out and I got that in writing.
Okay, so let's do this. We have a motion on the floor and we have a second. Is there any more discussion? And now we're just talking about the local ratifying of a budget at the land and water and UWEx level.
That's it.
That's it for now.
Just
Yep,
the land and water and not, you know,
right,
involving the highway budget, every other budget that the committee has, other committees within the county are
right,
dealing with.
right. This
solid
is,
base,
this is just
just
localized to
water.
us today
And
in
you're
this
talking about
motion.
putting that on the discussion, on the agenda for discussion in this department next month.
Correct. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion has carried. So, discussion, yeah. Right, okay.
And Madam Chair, I think that
Yes,
we need to
Supervisor
have,
Brown.
I think we need to have the corporate attorney
I do too.
involved in this meeting.
Yep,
Whether or not that we're barking up the wrong tree or if we have that ability. And I know
Well,
comments have been made that we are suppressed, but there are reasons for things. and
Right.
There are laws.
yep.
So.
And I do
within the
understand,
county Structure.
I do understand that we are policymakers, correct? That is our job, is for policymaker making. So, okay. Okay, all right. Now maybe move on to the Lake Alliance report. Anyone? Oh, that's Mary Lou. Sorry, Mary Lou. It's yours.
You know, the only thing, as you see it on the board, all the lakes that do attend, have been doing all their weed harvesting, everything. They've been setting up plans for next year. Most of them have been having their annual meetings, seeing what the people want, what they're gonna be doing. Tri-Lakes discussed and Tri-Lakes is not a lot at the ACL meetings, but somebody gives, you know, a comeback on that. But they're just discussing treatment, different ways to treat the weeds, the harvesting. Some of the lakes are doing their planning for restocking for next year. They also had at the last one was the drawing of water from if construction companies come in and draw too much water and then they go to the next lake and that they have to get the approval first. They can't just come in and take it. The lake committee has to approve it. Other than that, the FIFA's everything, I mean, they've been doing the testing and everything that they should. I guess I wasn't quite sure on the Rocha Cree pontoons and potatoes event that went on, but I guess that was a success, so.
Can I ask you a question when it comes to the drawing from lakes and the Lake Alliance? Was that overall Lake District sentiment or was that specifically Goose Lake?
No, I mean, it was the other, after it was discussed, the other lakes said the same thing that, you know, they wanted approval on that because.
They wanted notification, right?
Right,
Yeah.
because normally, I mean, a construction company will come in and, you know, take some, that's fine, but some of these were just going on and there were private people, you know, contractors or what coming in and taking water that should.
Okay, or at least excessively. Supervisor Mons?
Oh, you have that under item 13.
We do. And so then did you have anything to ask about Lake Alliance? Okay, is there any other committee members that wish to ask Mary Lou any question on the Lake Alliance report? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you, Mary Lou. FSA, Doreen?
We have not met since our last meeting here. Our next meeting is December 14th. Election is, and I don't remember what district, but I don't believe it does not include Adams County. So we have that and then standard business in December 14th.
Thank you. Any questions for Doreen? Seeing none, we'll move on. Central Sands Groundwater County Collaborative. Say that 5 times fast. We met on October 30th. We have not met since July, I believe was the last meeting. Updates were given from various counties, mostly well testing was discussed, the well testing programs. There is a 1-page informational document that's going to be sent out to the various counties that are underneath CSCG. I'm going to get it wrong. I'm not going to repeat the whole thing. CSGCC. So look for that hopefully in November. And a cameo picture was taken from the 6 counties that are underneath this organization to, I don't know, give better awareness as to what they do for counties in terms of the groundwater. So I know that the department is getting a clear picture. Our picture was kind of fuzzy. And so I'm not sure, Colton, are they working on that? I believe they are. Kiefer, maybe? Cody? Oh, Cody's working on, okay, because they're deriving those pictures from Land and Water. Okay. Okay, awesome. And so again, that should be in November, and if not in November, it'll be in December. There were some other things discussed. There is a tech group that is maybe more guiding some of the technical aspects of groundwater, and that was I think Kyle Kettner might be on that. Anna James, I think, may also be on that. So yeah, so more information on that as we get maybe rolling again on meetings. So DATCAP report, we're just moving on unless there are questions on the groundwater collaborative. Okay, DATCAP report, none was sent. So when that is sent, go ahead Supervisor Mons.
It was sent an email on November 3rd, and that's my question. Why wasn't it in the agenda? Because it is Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Land and Water Monthly, November 3rd, and then the report was actually also sent on the 3rd.
Thank you. I looked for it and I did not see it.
So they did have a note in there. They do have it worded slightly different if I'm remembering correctly. So the headline's slightly different.
Maybe that's why I missed it. Yeah, no, this came for Corinne and I actually did. So I will send this, no, I have no attachments on it. Which could be problematic. Did you have an attachment on yours, Bruce?
No.
Okay,
Well, here it is.
I think there was a link. I think I already deleted
There's,
mine. I'll look in my trash folder.
so I've got a Land and Water Monthly.
And I think that's
Oh,
what it
okay,
is.
so this is,
It's a report.
it is a
November of
different,
23.
okay, it's a different format they're following. Okay,
Correct.
I will send this to you to attach to our agenda. So that'll be out there. Okay, were there any questions in regards to that for those of people that did find it and read it over? Bruce, I think you might be the only one, so no, okay.
No,
All right, if there are, make us aware of it at the next meeting. Financials report. Are there any questions in regards to the financials report?
Is there a proposed budget for that or is that?
That is not, that's just a monthly snapshot.
So we don't have a budget?
The budget we already covered.
Okay.
So this is just a financial report.
Okay.
we see that on our agenda.
Yes. Yep. Anything? No. And we will be moving on to number 13. We have Jeff here, but Jeff, I'm going to have our recording secretary read your correspondence if I could, unless you wish to. What would the committee like? We usually read our correspondence from start to finish. So go ahead, Melissa, do you want to read that? And if you don't, I can too, so.
All three pages?
Yep.
Yeah. Per your request, I have conducted some research on Wisconsin's public.
I think you need to microphone or something.
Maybe Jeff could just summarize.
I think that'd be good.
Well, so we have a public aspect to our meetings. Well, this is correspondence and usually, unless I'm very much mistaken, we have to read it in its entirety. So, do you want me to read it? Sure. This came to me from Jeff Spitzer-Resnick, who is chair of Goose Lake Watershed District, regarding protecting Adams County waterways. Per your request, I have conducted some research on Wisconsin's public trust doctrine and how it may impact on the county's ability to protect its waterways from private businesses who seek to withdraw water from lakes and or rivers. As you are aware, I became aware of a gaping loophole in Wisconsin's waterways protection when we discovered that a local campground was withdrawing water out of Goose Lake for its own road construction, despite the fact that it has its own lake on its own property. The Goose Lake Watershed District then passed an ordinance prohibiting withdrawal of more than 100 gallons of water from Goose Lake without our permission. We sent a cease and desist order with the ordinance to the construction company and the business owner, which has, at least for now, stopped them from withdrawing more water from our lake. However, through the grapevine, we believe that they just went to another nearby lake to obtain their water. Accordingly, with the support of the Adams County Lakes Alliance, we are urging Adams County to adopt an ordinance similar to ours while making exceptions for fire suppression and other public projects. Although we believe that for non-emergency public projects, the county should also require evidence that public project will not harm the waterway from which the water will be withdrawn. For example, withdrawing 1 million gallons of water from a 40-acre lake versus doing so from a 400-acre lake should receive different considerations. Similarly, large water withdrawals should be viewed differently when lakes are at high levels versus low levels. The starting place for understanding Wisconsin water regulation is Article 9 of the Wisconsin Constitution. Section 1 of that article is the pertinent section, which reads as follows. The state shall have concurrent jurisdiction on all rivers and lakes bordering on this state so far as such rivers or lakes shall form a common boundary to the state and any other state or territory now or hereafter to be formed and bounded by the same and the river Mississippi and the navigable waters leading into the Mississippi and St. Lawrence and the carrying places between the same shall be common highways and forever free as well to the inhabitants of the state as to the citizens of the United States without any tax imposed or duty therefore. This section has developed into what has become known as the public trust doctrine, in which Wisconsin waters are held in trust by the state for the free use of all. However, this relatively simplistic doctrine does not end the analysis. The DNR's website explains the public trust doctrine protects the people of Wisconsin's rights to transportation and navigation on waterways, protection of water quality and aquatic habitat, recreational activities, including boating, fishing, hunting, trapping, and swimming in waterways, enjoyment of scenic beauty while on the water. The state and the DNR protect these rights through permitting requirements for water projects and enforcement actions to stop unauthorized impacts. Also, local zoning ordinances that limit development along navigable waterways help to ensure nearshore development does not result in unintended impacts that interfere with public rights. The DNR's website goes on to explain, Wisconsin law recognizes that an owner of land that borders lakes and rivers, known as a riparian owner, holds rights to use the water next to their property. Riparian rights include the use of the shoreline, reasonable use of the water, and a right to access the water. The Wisconsin State Supreme Court has ruled that when conflicts occur between the rights of riparian owners and public rights, the public rights are primary and the riparian owners are secondary. And that was bolded for those that are not looking at the document. Of course, the DNR regulates Wisconsin waterways in many ways, including water withdrawal. The question here is whether the DNR's limited regulation of water from Wisconsin waterways preempts local government from regulating what the DNR has left unregulated. Wisconsin law only requires a permit for the withdrawal of water from a lake or stream if the amount withdrawn averages 2 million gallons per day over a 30-day period, meaning that no permit is required if a private person or business owner wants to withdraw 60 million gallons from a lake over a 30-day period. See Wisconsin State Statute 30.182B. Thus, while it is clear that counties cannot regulate water withdrawals exceeding 2 million gallons per day, Wisconsin law is silent regarding regulation of smaller water withdrawals, and we believe that both watershed districts and counties may regulate such withdrawals. The question is whether any county regulation in this area is preempted by existing state law. This issue regarding this statute has not been reviewed by either the Wisconsin Court of Appeals or the Wisconsin Supreme Court. However, we can learn from other cases in which the preemption analysis was applied by those courts. Regarding another statute, the Wisconsin Court of Appeals described the appropriate preemption analysis as follows. Under the preemption doctrine, local control must yield to state law if 1, the legislature has clearly and expressly withdrawn the power of municipalities to act. 2, the local regulation logically conflicts with the state legislation. 3, the local regulation defeats the purpose of state legislation. Or 4, the local regulation violates the spirit of state legislation. See Adams versus State of Wisconsin Livestock Facilities Siting Review Board 2009 administrative. It's AP 608-12. Regarding the issue under consideration by Adams County, 1, the legislature has not expressly withdrawn the power of municipalities to act. 2, the local proposed regulation does not conflict with state legislation. 3, the local proposed regulation does not defeat the purpose of state legislation. And 4, the local proposed regulation does not violate the spirit of state legislation. In fact, this proposed ordinance is consistent with the Wisconsin's public trust doctrine because if passed, Adams County would be preserving its waterways for the use and enjoyment of the public and preventing them from potentially being literally sucked dry to benefit only private business owners. Did I get that right, Jeff? Okay, so that was our correspondence. I also asked for the DNR to come, whether virtually or physically. They were not able to, so Melissa has 2 other documents that are going underneath this agenda item or under correspondence
You want, yeah, we can add them as running to that one.
to number 13.
Yeah, is that what you'd like?
Yes. So please review those. And actually, I don't know if you can bring them up. I think you have them on your screen somewhere.
They're individual.
Okay. Can you bring them up separately for consideration of this discussion? Can you share your screen? There you go. Yes. Thank you for hanging in for that long. So this was sent from the DNR. It kind of goes into the state statute, Wisconsin stats. Any person can withdraw from a public road crossing, riparian rights, common law ability, withdraw water for personal use of nominal amounts. The private lawn, watering of private garden, road construction contractor receives riparian owner permission from town to fill tanker truck for dust suppression purposes during nearby road construction. And other variations of this scenario, see EA draft guidance written circa 212, which I think is the other document, isn't it? Maybe. Let's just stick with this one for right now. So I think the question is, are we allowed to create such ordinance? Right? Jeff, is why you're here asking for the Land and Waters Committee. Yes. Okay. Do you wish to come up and discuss further? And I apologize for this, these attachments coming so late for consideration. So what I'd like to do is also have this on an agenda item for next month also, so you guys have enough time to study what the DNR said. So, and maybe the DNR can be here for the next meeting, but go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, obviously I haven't seen. Is that it? There we go. I haven't seen this either. Look forward to seeing it. I just feel like there's a void in Wisconsin law, Wisconsin regulation for the withdrawal of really, and when I looked further to write this memo, at first I thought it was 2 million gallons a day, but it's actually written as an average of 2 million gallons a day over 30 days. So they could actually take out 1 gallon less than 60 million gallons in one day, as long as they don't take any more out in the next 30 days, and they come back and do it again. And DNR has no authority over this. And if DNR did, I understand, I'm an attorney, I'm not an environmental attorney, but I am an attorney. I do understand the concept of preemption, which means that if the state agency, in this case, the DNR, has a law in it, we as Adams County can't say, no, we don't like that law, we're going to do something different. But the way I view it is that the state has chosen to say silent for withdrawals under 2 million gallons a day, 60 million gallons a month. And if we believe that we think, you know what, 59 million gallons, I mean, I almost have to laugh to say it because it's an outrageous amount. Without any regulation whatsoever, as I put in my memo, I think it's of course important to think about, are we in a flooding year? If you would ask me 5 years ago, can you take 10,000 gallons out of Goose Lake? I would say, please take it. Please take 20, take 30. If you ask me this year, where the lake is literally 2 feet lower than it was 2 years ago, I would say, what are you talking about? You're putting, our water levels are already at dangerously low levels. So, you know, I could have sat back and relaxed and said, well, we protected our lake by writing our own ordinance and got these people to go away. But that's not the kind of person I am. I don't, because they went over to another lake. And I think, you know, this is the right place to have the conversation. I am unaware whether any other counties have done this, but I think, you know, why not start here? We're alphabetically, I think, the first in the state, right? And I think it'll be interesting to see whether other counties follow suit. I think people will pay attention to this, and maybe the state legislature eventually will and realize there's a gaping hole in its statutes and protect all Wisconsin lakes. But you know, that's really not our job here in Adams County.
Thank you, Jeff. Further questions? Supervisor McLaughlin?
I just have a comment. Mentioning about whether other counties do it, I gotta think that more urban counties are, if they're not on top of this, you know, I think you're taking the lead here. I mean, when I say more urban, become more development, more of this, more of that, I gotta think that's can be a huge problem.
You may be right. And, you know, my best guess is, and honestly, we wouldn't have even known this if an attentive neighbor hadn't noticed a truck with a 6-inch hose sucking water out of our lake. I mean, that's how we discovered it. Nobody gave us notice. Nobody said, by the way, just want to let you know. I can imagine if you were at a bigger lake and people, they happen to come to our boat launch, but if you took the water out, maybe when nobody was watching, nobody would even know. So I would, you know, when I tell people about this, most people say, you're kidding me. That's allowed. So I'm guessing that I mean, I didn't know the history of why the state set the DNR, you know, kind of lower limit at 2 million gallons. When we called the DNR, and I may have said this when I was here a couple months ago about it, because my first question was, do these guys have a permit? And the answer was no, but the reason they don't is they don't need one because there's no requirement to get one. And also, to be clear, we're not, and I think it would be inappropriate if we just tried to ban all water withdrawals. There may be reasonable water withdrawals, but to have absolutely no oversight at either the watershed district, which we've taken, or the county level. The problem with just having it at the watershed district levels, it means every watershed district would have to pass it. Plus, as you know, many lakes don't have watershed districts.
Are there any other questions from the committee? So Jeff, I have one.
Yeah.
Corp Counsel, you had a conversation with Corp Counsel.
We had an email exchange, you know, back when one of the ironies is that when we wrote our ordinance, we wrote into it, turns out not exactly correctly, that it could be enforced by the county sheriff. I contacted the county sheriff to talk to him about that, and they said, no, we don't enforce municipal, or in our case, not exactly municipal, but things that aren't the county's ordinances. And I said, okay, fine. And he suggested I get in touch with the Corp Counsel, and he in turn suggested that I lobby the county board, which is what I'm doing. We did have a conversation about the preemption issue because that was, and it's reasonable. He's the lawyer who would have to defend the county if somebody took action on it. He shared with me, not the case that I cited here, but a different case. People may have heard of the Lake Beulah case regarding groundwater, because there's certainly been litigation over the issue of CAFOs taking large amounts of water, but that's groundwater, not surface water. In that case, because there are highly restrictive state statutes that do give the DNR authority over regulating groundwater withdrawals from CAFOs or others, the court said that was preempted. My response to the County Corp Council is this is a different statute, and we're dealing with a situation where there is no DNR authority at all. He said he'd look into it. We didn't talk further. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
So, yes, Supervisor Wimmer.
Jeff, where would you like us to go from here?
No, I don't want to say that I know the way ordinance is passed, but my assumption here is that I would like to see Adams County pass an ordinance similar to ours, except like the Lake Alliance said, with specific exceptions for fire suppression, public purpose, and with some guidance, saying that the review, and it would be an interesting question, who would review it? Would it be staff? Would it be this committee? I'm guessing it would be staff, but that's obviously up to the committee. And then in turn, because I assume this committee doesn't have power to pass an ordinance, it would be sent to the county board, hopefully for approval. But that's what I would like to see happen. I guess it's for the chair to call.
Yep, Supervisor McLaughlin.
Thank you. I would think that, certainly I would be in favor of the county looking into this. Am I wrong in assuming or thinking that if an ordinance is developed, it should be based on some physical parameters? Let's just say the volume range of water and where you're allowed to take this much. And you know what I'm saying? Instead of just a flat rule that says that cover every lake, because that doesn't really seem like.
Right. My number one, I'll be the first to admit, I'm not a hydrologist, right? So I'm not about to be able to write those kind of details. What I would prefer to see, and I think would be easier, is say the things that should be considered in reviewing a request should include the volume of the water in the lake, the volume of the withdrawal requested, the level of the lake in terms of high, low, et cetera, and any other adverse impact. When you take that amount of water, you're not just taking water. They're not putting a filter on their hose. So is there a concern around spreading invasives? Is there a concern around removing certain small fish or other, lake creatures, if you will, very unscientific there. And so by giving, and again, I think it would be staff who has some expertise in this would review that and say, okay, sure, this sounds reasonable. You only want 1,000 gallons and this lake is a 400-acre lake and it's a reasonably high level, fine. Or, you want, 30 million gallons and over the next month, and you're talking about a 40-acre lake at a low level. No, we're going to deny that.
Supervisor Mons.
I don't know how many people have heard this in this room, but I think the DNR has the most power of any agency in the state. They have the most power. I don't know that we, again, might be barking up the wrong tree. I would like to see the DNR representative here before I make any recommendation to go to the county or any ordinance. I would like to have the DNR involved in this discussion to see whether or not that this is something that they can't come back to us and say, well, wait a minute now, you guys have made an ordinance, but we're the ones that enforce that. So it's not the sheriff, it's not the local police, it's the DNR. They're the ones that will enforce this rule. So whether or not that we spend all this time and go to the county, then at some point in time, they fight back, or somebody would give us a reason to, have to negate this. Then we would, I would like to see DNR here at a meeting here at Land and Water.
So again, we're going to have this on next month's agenda and ask for the DNR presence, physical, not just sending this information.
Because I agree, I think we know what's wanted or what
Right.
is a concern
Yep.
or why there are the concerns.
Yep. And then we'll ask for,
I'm hauntingly remembering a meeting that just got out of control at the Big Rosha Cree Lake District on our annual meeting when a DNR official said that the carnal blue butterfly is up here and humans are down here. So.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Chair did invite the DNR to this meeting, and as she mentioned, they weren't able to make it for whatever reason. I hope they do come. I'm certainly not concerned with having a conversation with them. It is my belief that when you read the state statutes, they simply, even though I agree, they are in general very powerful, for these lower than 2 million gallons a day, they just have no role. It's not written in the statute and there's no regulations on it. Well, my best, I mean, look, I've lobbied on many issues at the state level for decades, literally. My best guess is this feels like something that the road builders put in a long time ago. And who knows, I haven't done the research to see how long ago it could have been. Who knows, way back in Depression era, when people, certainly weren't that concerned with environmental issues. Road building was huge and important, et cetera, and people just didn't even think about it. I mean, sometimes what's not in statutes is as much about what people didn't think about than anything else. That's my best guess.
so thank you for coming. Are there any other questions? Supervisor McLaughlin?
Thank you. I just wanted to voice an agreement with Supervisor Mullins about having DNR here, but I got another comment related to DNR, and this is based on my experience working for the county. They will not enforce a county ordinance. That I can guarantee it. You'll blow me over with a feather if they ever. And the last 10 years while I was still working here, DNR, Department of Commerce, now DSPS, all of them started backing off of doing the enforcement of the rules they could. They backed off and kept backing off.
Yeah.
As things got worse and worse, and they dumped it on local regulators. In this case, what, for me, the zoning director. Yeah, no, I'm just saying the power they have, but they have given up. And again, not just pointing a finger at DNR. A lot of those departments have just backed off.
Yeah, I agree. And in this case, they wouldn't, if this were to pass, enforce a DNR ordinance. What we put in our ordinance was a fine per gallon, and it was only $10 per gallon. But if you take out 1 million gallons, that's it's a lot of money, right? And so, the first step is, can you get a permit? Second step is, do you enforce a failure to get a permit? And this obviously isn't a criminal violation. It would be, I think, appropriate to have a civil fine. I mean, if you want, I can try to draft, and I would, if he'll work with me, send it to Corp Council before the next meeting and, draft an ordinance that would be an Adams County ordinance that again would be similar to ours, but have these other provisions that the Lake Alliance, I think, appropriately suggested. Would that be helpful?
Although I think that would be helpful, I think we're getting the cart before the horse.
Okay.
So I think we have to have our discussion with DNR first before we actually put a workload. I mean, certainly, Jeff, at your own efforts, if you wish to draft something up, but I don't think that should be shared yet with Corp Council.
Okay.
Because it may not come to fruition.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah,
So
right.
yes, Supervisor Mons.
I'll follow your lead.
Unlike the budget discussion that we had, this is something that I believe Land and Water could ratify and get to the board. I believe that this is something we could push to the board, in fact, if we believe that is something that would.
I think so too. So it would be something to do with an ordinance. Let's get DNR's input. And then if we can proceed, then absolutely go back to Land and Water and Corp Council. And Jeff, if you would be so willing.
Be glad to.
So I think the first thing that we need to do is just have the DNR present And I don't know, like Mandy was on virtual today. We had a little bit of a hiccup. But if it's virtual or physical, I think we're fine with it. Correct? Okay, so we'll have the DNR present next time. During the time between now and then, study over the documentation that the DNR did provide to us. And we'll have this on next month's agenda, Jeff.
All right, I'll be back.
Yes, Supervisor Wimmer?
Dustin, are you the one that will contact the DNR? Who? Oh, you are?
I've been in
Okay.
contact with them, yeah.
Okay, well, good. We need to get a commitment out of them. Because if we have another meeting next month and.
Or are you talking about enforcement purposes?
No,
If we,
no, they'll be here.
oh, yes,
be here.
yes,
Because
yeah,
If they don't make a commitment.
right, right. Yep, yep. We need a commitment. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, and where are we on my agenda? Up, discuss and or act on the resolution of Wisconsin DNR surface water grant for nutrient testing in the Big and Little Roche Cree watersheds. Did everyone have an opportunity to study over that resolution?
And there were 2 pages after
Yes,
and
that's the grant,
well,
surface water grant application.
2 of the 7 pages, but this is the one that kind of gives the nuts and bolts of what it's for, why, and whatnot.
Dustin, can you tell me who filled this out?
Kiefer.
Kiefer, okay. PFAS aren't mentioned. Is that because it's just nitrates and is it phosphates? Am I getting that right?
I believe. Correct.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Supervisor Mons.
for my education on this with, who's the young lady that was here and left and she had this?
Anna James?
Yes. She spearheaded this beginning of this after county's only allowed to work on one watershed at a time that I understood.
Are you talking about the farmer led group?
Yes,
Okay, this is not the farmer led.
this is
group.
part of it.
Oh,
No.
if I may.
Yes,
No,
please.
this is, as of December 31st, well, January 1st of this coming year, we are no longer connected with Farmers of the Roche Cree. As far as we had been their grant administrator, if they were spending money, it would come through our office, or our department. They are now going to be using Packers, as their grant administrator, which fine. This is tied to them in the respect that it was theirs and Scott Provost. It originated there and they are willing to do, there is potential that they are going to be donating some of those funds to us.
So can you continue the question? Where do we get the $3,481 required for this? If it's not a budgeted item, where does that money come from?
Yep. So if you look at the following paragraph of the
3182.38, 3481.63.
right. So just under $3,200 of that, Kiefer is going to be the point person on this. That is his salary. I mean, obviously Kiefer already gets paid, has benefits. The portion that he would be devoting to this project, those hours count towards that $3,182. There is an associated budget sheet that shows how he came up with that number. And then that we would be responsible for a total of just under 3,500. His wages and stuff come to just under 3,200, which leaves about $300. And like I said, as the sentence said, we have reason to believe we're getting a donation from the group. Right. So net at the end, zero out of pocket. Obviously, we do have time being devoted to it, and there's a couple $100 for like mileage as well. But as far as us actually handing over $3,000.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the resolution for Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Surface Water Grant for nutrient testing in the Big and Little Roche Creek watershed.
Do I have a second? Okay. Supervisor Eggersdorf seconded that motion. Further discussion? I'm hearing none. All right, let's take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on. Next meeting date, I have down December 5th, 2023 at 1 p.m. Does everybody else have that? Yes, Supervisor Mons?
Can I have a review on the requested agenda items that we added for next month?
Yes, Melissa, can you? She was busy over here writing.
I do have, okay. Item 13, the water withdrawal. And
We have the APHIS. The APHIS items are also on. Did you get that?
yeah, the budget, crop prices and deer venison donations.
Correct. Yep.
Yes. Is that it?
That's all I had. Bruce, does that fit with what you had? Okay. All right. So again, December 5th, 2023 at 1 p.m. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. And we also need signatures on that. Yep.
The one we just